Okay, good afternoon. We are living with the light, hopefully, and we're going to talk about Chanukah and how appropriate the name of the series, Living with Light, for Chanukah. Living with the lights of Chanukah. So, let's begin with a basic question, which is, why was the holiday of Chanukah established? We're all about the why behind the what. So, why was the holiday of Chanukah established? So, we're aware that there were many many things going on back in the times of the second Beis Hamikdash under Greek rule, and the Greeks had made many decrees against the Jewish people, that they couldn't learn Torah, they couldn't observe Shabbos, they couldn't observe bris milah, circumcision, and other restrictions as well. In addition to that, they entered the temple and defiled it, and it was a very difficult time. The Jewish people rose up, led by Matisyahu and his sons, and rebelled and miraculously defeated the Greek army and was able to chase them out. Rabim biad me'atim, the many at the hands of the few. And following that, they were able to enter the temple and purify it and clean it out. And of course, they couldn't find any oil. They found some oil. They lit the menorah. It was only enough oil to last one night. They lit the menorah and it lasted for 8 nights. So I asked the question again, why did they establish the holiday of Chanukah? So the Gemara in Maseches Shabbos 21b asks a question, which is apparently that question. The Gemara asks, "My Chanukah?" And literally would say, "What is Chanukah?" But Rashi, in his commentary on that Gemara, Rashi says, exactly our question, Al Ezen Nes Kav'uha. On which miracle did they establish the holiday of Chanukah? Well, how many miracles were there? So that perhaps remains to be seen. But on which miracle did they establish the holiday of Chanukah? And the Gemara goes through one aspect of the story. Says the Gemara, the Tana Rabban and the rabbis taught. And this is a quote from what's known as Megillas Tainus. Megillas Tainus is actually, I believe, the earliest recorded oral Torah, oral tradition in a certain sense. It predates the writing down of the Mishnah by a good bit, I think. And Megillas Tainus is a collection of different holidays that you're not allowed to fast on, and you can't eulogize on. And it describes these holidays, most of which are no longer practiced nowadays. They celebrated certain salvations and different things, but two of them are still in practice, and those are Purim and Chanukah. So there it says, and the Gemara quotes it, on the 25th of Kislev, that we have the holiday of Chanukah. And like I said, this is what Megillas Tainus is about. You're not allowed to eulogize on them, and you're not allowed to fast on them. And then it gives us the background. When the Yevanim, when the Greeks entered the temple, the sanctuary, they defiled all the oils in the sanctuary. In the commentary here, it says by touching them. Okay, that's actually maybe up for discussion. How exactly did they defile them? What does it mean that they defiled them? But they did. That's what the Gemara says. But when the kingdom, the monarchy of the Hasmoneans, the Hashmonaim, overcame them, they were not yet a monarchy. They would become a monarchy. But when they overcame them and emerged victorious, they searched all around. They could only find one jug of oil that had the seal of the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. And there was only enough to light one night. And what happened? Nasa bones, a miracle occurred. And they lit for 8 days. And the following year, or sometime after that, they established days of holidays and Hallel and Hodah and praise and thanksgiving to Hashem. This is what seemingly what it's saying, the holiday of Chanukah was established over. As we said, my Chanukah, what's Chanukah about? Rashi says, for what miracle did they establish it? And tells us the story, the miracle of the oil. Now that begs the question, would we make a holiday over such a miracle? I mean, it's a beautiful miracle. That oil that was supposed to burn for 1 day lasted for 8 days. But there were many miracles during the times of the temple. Not everyone gets a holiday. I mean, what are we celebrating? What is there to celebrate about that miracle? And if it didn't burn for 8 days, would my life be any different? They would have missed out on the mitzvah of lighting the menorah. They would be ba'ones. It wouldn't be their fault. So sometimes the mitzvah isn't performed when a person can't perform it. There was a miracle that they were able to perform it. It must have been wonderful. It must have been exciting. But why do I celebrate a holiday because of that? So this question is asked by many commentaries, but the Maharal, in his work on Chanukah called Ner Mitzvah, the Maharal asked this question. And he says, okay, for the salvation that we were saved, that maybe is fitting to make a holiday over. That matters nowadays. The fact that we were saved 2,000 years ago, it makes a difference because we're still around because of that. But that may be something to be celebrated. But the Gemara seems to be saying that we're celebrating because the oil burned for 8 nights. Why is that something to celebrate? So in one of his answers, the Maharal says, actually, it's not the case. We're not celebrating just that the oil lasted for 8 days. Really, we're celebrating that we defeated the Greeks, that we were saved from annihilation, spiritual annihilation perhaps, from assimilation. But, says the Maharal, that victory wasn't so obvious that it was a miracle. It wasn't so obvious that God's hand was at play. Yes, it was the many at the hands of the few. It was a small ragtag army defeating the well-trained, well-equipped, highly weaponized at that time Greek army. And it certainly was out of the ordinary. But also a person could look at it and say that it was natural. It was the result of bravery and strategy, cunning, well-timed attacks, and everything just fell into place. That's what one could have said and might have said at that time, and certainly after that. Therefore, God also performed an open miracle. When they came back to the Beis HaMikdash, when they reestablished the temple service, there was something open, something obvious, which was the lights lasting for 8 nights. And this kind of informed them, this showed them that everything that was going on in that time period was supernatural, was a miracle, and just as this was a miracle, the lights lasting for 8 nights, so too the victory over the Greeks was miraculous. The Rimurski points out there's actually a connection that a little bit became, was like a lot when it came to the oil. A little bit of oil was accomplished what you would think you would need a lot of oil for. And similar in the war, a little bit of a small army accomplished what you would have thought a great army would be necessary for. And therefore, the Maharal seems to be explaining the Gemara that even though the Gemara, again, if we accept the reading of Rashi, that the question was, why did they establish this holiday? And the answer is because of the miracle of the menorah, the miracle of the lights lasting 8 days. It's really saying that's what led us to establish it. As a result of that, we were able to recognize Hashem's hand in the victory and in our salvation from the Greeks. And as a result of that, we established the holiday of Chanukah, but it became clear to us because of the miracle of the oil. Now, the Maharal continues, and he says that it was specifically God specifically brought a miracle with regards to the service in the temple in the Beis Hamikdash because that was one of the main things that the Greeks went after, to come in and defile the Heichal, to defile the sanctuary. And Hashem saw their wickedness and what they did, and he gave the Chashmonaim, he gave the Maccabees, who were, by the way, Kohanim. They were Kohanim. They were the ones who would do the temple service. And he gave them the strength, specifically them, to lead the rebellion, to overcome the Greeks. And after they defeated them, they were able to enter and repair and rectify the damage that had been done to the temple itself. And so insofar as this was one of the main points of attack of the Greeks, that's where the miracle occurred. The opening miracle was within the Beis Hamikdash. Now, there's another component here, which is noted by the Bach. The Bach, of Yoel Sirkish, from the, I guess, early 1600s, he points out that we celebrate Chanukah very differently than Purim. Purim, there's specifically a mitzvah to have a feast, while on Chanukah, there's no specific mitzvah to have a feast. There's a lot of discussion about it. Is it important? Is it valued? But there's no specific mitzvah to have a feast on Chanukah. The mitzvah is to give praise and thanks to Hashem and to light the menorah, which may be a part of, that might also be a part of giving thanks and praise. But there's no mitzvah to have a feast on Chanukah. And the Bach explains because they were very fundamentally different salvations. And not only that, but they were very fundamentally different causes for our suffering in the first place. In the story of Purim, we ate from the Suda, the feast of Achashverosh. We indulged with our bodies, and therefore the decree was against our bodies, against the guf, annihilation of the body. And the salvation was a salvation of the body. Haman was going to destroy us, to wipe us out, and we were saved. And so the celebration is done in a physical manner with eating, with feasting. On Hanukkah, though, first of all, the Greeks were not going after our bodies. They were going after our neshamas, our souls. They were trying to assimilate us into Greek culture, Hellenize us. That's A. But B, says the Bach, the reason why we were deserving of such suffering at that time was because we as a people, or the Kohanim at the time, were lax in their energy, in their drive, in their passion in performing the temple service. And that's why it was taken away from them. That's why the ability to bring the daily karbanos, the karban tamid, was taken away from them, and the mizbeach was destroyed, the altar, and the menorah, everything, because they were weak in their service in the temple. And it was only, but when they went to war over that, when they went to war over the Greek oppression of the neshama, of the soul, of the spiritual, so then we merited to get it back. Now, the Greeks, the Medrash teaches us, had a phrase that they would want us to familiarize ourselves with. The Medrash says, actually, at the very beginning of Bereshis, it says that in the exile of Greece, they would tell the Jews, you should write on the horn of your oxen that you have no portion in the God of Israel. It's on the top of the second page of the source sheet. But you should write on the horns of your oxen that you have no portion in the God of Israel. Kind of a strange thing. Lots of different explanations for the significance of writing on the horn of an ox, but we'll leave that for now. For now, what's the message? You have no portion in the God of Israel. So it could be that the message they were trying to give the Jewish people thought that they have a special relationship with Hashem, and the Greeks said, you have no special relationship. And not only that, but he has no special relationship with you. He has no desire for your service. He doesn't care for you. And part of the Greeks going in and defiling the temple was an expression of this. You have no, he doesn't want your service. We're going to, and therefore we're going to destroy and fill the temple with idols, and he has no interest in this relationship. And it could be based on the Bach that in a certain sense they were a little bit right, because if it was the case that we were weak in Hashem's service in the temple, then Hashem doesn't want it. And he said, and he allowed the Greeks to come in. It was only when we went to war over it, when we fought and said, no, we want to do it. We want to, and it's important to us. And we want the relationship. We want that connection. So then Hashem saw our passion, saw our drive, and then made a miracle for us to be able to come back and merit to purify and rededicate the temple. And so, actually, the words of the Maharal, in addition to what we've said about that it was the Greeks were trying to they went after the sanctuary, and that's why the miracle happened there. The Maharal has a line. He says that it showed when Hashem made the miracle of the oil lasting, it showed that Hashem wanted the avoda, the service of the Jewish people. By making a miracle of the oil lasting, that's Hashem saying, I do want your service. I want this relationship. I want you to do avoda. I want you to do the service in the Beis HaMikdash. So it seems that there's even more to the story. The celebration of Chanukah over the miracle of the lights, number one, we have, like we said from the Maharal, that the miracle of the lights was a way of course, what we're really celebrating is our salvation from the Greeks, from being saved from their oppression, from their attempt to assimilate us. That's what we're celebrating. So why is it done over with the Hanukkah lights? Because that was and why are we celebrating the miracle of the lights? How is that significant? Because that's what brought out, that's what showed us that everything that was happening was the hand of Hashem, that the salvation from the Greeks was in fact miraculous as well, number one. But number two, we also celebrate the miracle of the lights because the miracle of the lights was Hashem showing us, like, I do want your avoda. I'm interested in this connection with you. The Greeks were trying to say to us, Ein lachem chelek be'elokei Yisrael. You have no portion in the God of Israel. He's not interested in any connection with you. And like I said, like the Bach says, maybe they were a little bit right when we moved away, when we were lax in our service, then Hashem says, I'm not so interested in it. When we rededicated ourselves and went to war over it and came back and rededicated the temple, so then Hashem says, I do want it. I'm going to show you that I want it because I'm going to make the lights last. I'm going to make a miracle, and that's going to show you that I am interested in this relationship with you. So that's perhaps one, what the significance of the miracle of the lights is. It's something to be celebrated, even though it's okay, it's a nice miracle. It happened 2,000 years ago. What does it have to do with me? What it has to do with is, number one, it shows Hashem's hand, just like at that time, by Yamim Haim, Hashem's hand was there fighting our battles. So too, Bazman Hazeh nowadays, it's of course the same, but that's what we remember when we light the menorah. But number two, also it showed that Hashem wants our service and He wants that relationship, and that's what we are celebrating when we light the menorah. Okay, now the way that the rabbis enacted the mitzvah to light Hanukkah lights was very interesting because they did it with different levels of how it could be completed. So the Gemara tells us also in Shabbos, the same page, 21b, it says that there are 3 levels of performing the mitzvah of lighting the menorah. The basic level is to have 1 light per household every night. If that's all you could afford, if that's all you have available, just one light in the house for Chanukah each night. That's the basic level of the mitzvah. There's a higher level, which is to have one light per member of the household every night. So if there are 4 people in the household, you have 4 lights every night for the first night, for the second night, for the third night. But then there's Mehadrin and Hamehadrin. There's the highest level. And the highest level to perform the mitzvah is that you light one light the first night, you light 2 lights the second night, 3 lights, and you go up. That's at least the opinion of Beis Hillel, to go up each night. And the opinion of Beis Shammai, the Gemara tells us, is to go down each night. First night 8, second night 7, third night 6, etc. Going down all the way down to 1. And the Gemara tells us that suggests different reasons for the opinions of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So the Gemara first says that Beis Shammai says to go down because you want to show the incoming days. Keneged yamim hanichnasim. How many days are left of Chanukah? So on the first night, there's 8, so you light 8. Second night, 7 left, you light 7, etc. And Beis Hillel says you want to show how many days have passed. 1 day has passed, 2 days have passed, 3 days have passed. So the first night, 1, second night, 2, third night, 3, etc., showing how many days of Chanukah have passed. That's one understanding. Now, let's just actually pause on that for a moment. What are they arguing about? Why does Beis Shammai say we should demonstrate how many days remain? There's 8 days left, there's 7 days left. And why does Beis Hillel say we should show how many days have passed? 1 day has passed, 2 days have passed, etc. So the Pnei Yoshua, well, actually, before we get to the Pnei Yoshua, let's just remind ourselves of the very famous question of Rabbi Yosef Karo of the Beis Yosef. And I say remind because we spoke about it last year, but and I'm sure many of you have heard of it. If you haven't, then here it is. So there's a question that's discussed on Chanukah. It's a favorite, and it's referred to as the Beis Yosef's kasha, the question of the Beis Yosef, although really it was asked before Rabbi Yosef Karo came around in the 1500s. So it's asked by earlier commentaries as well. And that question is, why is Chanukah 8 nights? Well, we know that they found oil that could last 1 night. So really, if you think about it, only 7 nights were miraculous. There was enough oil for 1 night. So the fact that it lasted 8 nights means that there was 1 night that was expected and 7 nights that were not expected. Now, there's different ways to kind of picture this question because the first question is, how do you picture the miracle having taken place? So I think most people probably just picture the miracle as they found 1 flask of oil, they put it in the menorah, and it burned, and the menorah burned all night, and the oil was still there. So, well, that was a miracle the first night. And the second night, the same. It burned the whole night. And the third night and the fourth night. Well, come to the last night, what happened? There was oil, and it burned out. So, was that a miracle? It burned out. That there was oil, and it naturally burned out. It doesn't seem like there was a miracle on the last night. That's one way to picture the question, that the last night wasn't miraculous because the oil would have burned out by the last night. So it kind of depends how you picture the miracle taking place, but actually will tie into the answers the Beis Yosef gives. The Beis Yosef doesn't really explain exactly what he thought in his question. He just asked the question straight up. He says, why did they establish 8 days if there was enough oil to light for 1, so there was only a miracle for 7, not 8? Many, many answers to this question. The Beis Yosef himself gives 3 answers. The first answer he gives is that actually, when they found enough oil for only 1 night, so they decided to divide it into... Oh, so first of all, we have to understand, they knew they couldn't get more oil for 8 days. So it would take 8 days before they could bring new oil. So they knew they have one night's worth, but it's got to last 8 nights. So what did they do? They divided it. They divided it into 8 parts, and they put just 1/8 into the menorah each night. So if there's only 1/8 of the oil, then you'd expect it to only last 1/8 of the night. But miraculously, it lasted the whole night. Even though there was only enough for 1/8 of the night, it lasted the whole night. This is the Beis Yosef's first answer. Other commentaries are not so happy with it because you just have to do what you have to do tonight. If you only have enough for for one night, then just light it all tonight and you'll worry about tomorrow. What does it help to light 1/8? It's supposed to burn the whole night, so just light the whole thing. But that's his first answer. They split it into eight and only lit and used just 1/8, and yet each night the 1/8 burned the whole night. His second answer is that they poured the whole thing in, but then they looked in the jug, and miraculously, it was still full. So, so on the first night they poured, and there was, and miraculously the jug was still full. So if that's the case, then already on the first night there was a miracle. Now, problem is you get to the last night, and when they poured it, it wasn't full anymore. But I guess you have miraculous oil. There's still some level of miracle. It's hard to understand exactly how that would answer the question if we're looking at the last night, because by the last night they pour it out and there's no oil left in the jug. There's no miracle. But okay, that's his second answer. Is the miracle was that they poured out the oil and miraculously it remained full. The jug remained full. So this one jug of oil they found that could only last one night, they poured it out, but it didn't go out. It was still full even after they poured it out, and that was the miracle. His third answer is that that on the first night they poured out all the oil into the candles, and actually this third answer is actually the way that I had assumed in the first place. So let's go back a step. It seems the Beis Yosef was not asking the question the way that I asked it about the last night. He was asking about the first night. If they had enough to last one night, then why is it a miracle the first night? So his third answer is, well, the miracle is that the oil didn't go out. It lit it the first night and it stayed burning the whole night, and it was still full in the morning. Okay, but then the problem is, like I said before, when you get to the last night, there's no miracle. It burned out the last night. So you'll have to say, well, it was miraculous that that there was oil even still in the last night. Yes, it burned out, but there shouldn't have been oil, so that was the miracle. Okay, so this is again the famous question: why is Hanukkah 8 nights? So bearing this in mind, let's proceed to the discussion of the Pnei Yoshua. So the Pnei Yoshua wonders, why do we have this concept in the first place of the basic level, which is just like one night to remember the miracle, but then we have this higher level, which is to go up each night or to go down each night, whichever one you understand. Beis Shammai says to go down, Beis Hillel says to go up. Why do we have that concept? Let's just do the basic level to light a light, and if you light a special light each night, we'll remember the miracle of Hanukkah. So the Pnei Yoshua says that because really every day the miracle increased in a certain sense because it was more unexpected. Okay, miraculously lasted 2 nights. Okay, but then it lasted 3 nights, and then it lasted 4 nights, and each day that it lasted built up on the miracle. And so, says the Pnei Yoshua, the way that we publicize the miracle should grow as well. If the miracle itself, if our sense of the miracle grew each night, because to last 2 nights is greater than one night, and to last 3 nights is greater than 2 nights, so then the way that we publicize it also should increase each night. First night, we'll publicize it with one, then we'll do two. We're going to increase the way that we publicize the miracle each night. That would explain the idea of adding each night, or maybe even subtracting possibly could show that the miracle increased each time. How so? So according to Beis Hillel, we increase each night. We add. This is what we do. So why do we add? So because since the miracle was increasing each night, um, since the miracle was increasing each night, then then we want to increase. It's more intuitive, right? We want to increase each night. The miracle grew greater, um, and so we add candles. That shows that the miracle was increasing. That's the Beis Hillel. That's what we do. What about Beis Shammai? Why would we go down? Why would we show? Why would we want to show how many days have passed? So the Pnei Yehoshua suggests that if you understand that the miracle actually took place not in the oil of the candles themselves, but in the jug, then it's a little bit different, right? Going back to the Beis Yosef's question, how can we celebrate 8 nights if the miracle was only for 7 nights? So one answer is that the miracle was that the jug remained full. So which means that if you would have looked at the candles, the lights lasting, you wouldn't have seen a miracle because you had a full jug the first night, you poured it into the candles, and now they're full of oil, and they last all night because they're full of oil. And the second night you have the jug, and you pour it, and the lights are full, and they last the whole night. But that wasn't miraculous because, or at least you don't see the miracle there, because they were full and they lasted all night. Where do you see the miracle? You see the miracle in the jug, that the oil remained in the jug. But the Pnei Yehoshua has a bit of a different understanding than the Beis Yosef, because he suggests that after each night the jug wasn't completely full. After each night it went down 1/8. So so the first night the they poured the they poured it in, and then there was only 7/8 left in the jug. So so you look at the jug at the first night, and you have that you poured some into the menorah, and 1/8 into the menorah from the jug. Only 1/8 left the jug, and yet the menorah was filled up. And you have the 7/8 remaining in the jug. So that's 8 nights of miracle in front of you, so to speak. The second night, you now have only 7/8 left in the jug, and then you pour out from the jug again, and then you have just 7/8. So it's 7 nights remaining of the miracle, and then you have 6/8 left the third night, etc. And that's why you would go down, because you're looking at what's left in the jug is kind of how many days of miracle are left in this jug, and that's where you witness the miracle, and that's why you would go down. So this is the Pnei Yehoshua suggesting an explanation for Beis Shammai for why you would go down. It's because you're looking at the jug and seeing how much miracle remains in the jug. The first night, it's a full jug. You pour it out, and there's still 7/8 left, plus what you poured into the menorah. So you have 7/8 plus in the menorah, 8/8. You have 8 nights worth of oil. And then the second night, you have just 7/8 left because a quarter, 1/8 has gone down, and you pour it out again, and only 1/8 leaves, and now you have 6/8 left plus what you pour in the menorah, so that's 7 nights worth, etc. So that was the explanation that the Pnei Yehoshua suggested for Beis Shammai. A little bit difficult to understand Beis Shammai's position. Beis Shammai's position of why you would go down and count the days that have passed. So this is a suggestion. I think the simpler suggestion is that you're just counting how many days left of the miracle are there? How many days left? We know that there's going to be 8 nights of miracle. So the first night, there's 8 nights left. The second night, there's 7 nights left. And we're working with hindsight that we know there's 8 nights left. So I think that would be the simpler explanation. But the Pnei Yehoshua describes it as looking in the jug. That's where the miracle was taking place, and how much you see remaining. Okay, that's Beis Shammai. Coming back to this general question, though, of why are there different levels of performing the mitzvah of Chanukah? We have the basic level, one light for the whole household, a higher level, which is one light per person in the household, and then the highest level, which is to go up each night, one the first night, second the third, second night, third the third night, etc., which is what we do, fitting into the approach of Beis Hillel. So, in other words, our question is why specifically, what was special about the Chanukah miracle that we invoke this concept of having a way to beautify it more, pushing ourselves, so to speak, to beautify it more. There's a basic level, but then within the very framework of the mitzvah, is built in a way to beautify it. Why did they decide to enact the mitzvah of lighting the menorah in that fashion? So Rabbi Emanuel Bernstein in his book cites, I think the general idea is his own, based on an idea found in a number of different commentaries. And let's go back to the story that the Gemara records of what happened when they couldn't find any oil. So the Gemara says that they searched, and all they found was one jug that had the seal of the Kohen Gadol of the high priest. Now the commentaries wonder, why is there oil that has the seal of the high priest? Since when does the oil in the Beis Hamikdash come in jugs that have the seal of the high priest on it, that have the seal of the Kohen Gadol? In fact, if it was the case that only the Kohen Gadol could light the menorah, then maybe it would make sense that he has kind of his special stash of oil for lighting the menorah, because he's the only one who lights the menorah. But that's not the case. Any Kohen is allowed to light the menorah, not just the Kohen Gadol. So where does this concept come from? Why would there be jugs that have the seal of the Kohen Gadol? If anything, the way some of them say it is like the one in charge of processing the oil should put his seal on it. Whoever, the Kohen Gadol was probably not the kashrus agency, the hechsher for preparing the oil. He was a pretty busy guy. So whoever was in charge of preparing the oil, it should be his seal that was on the oil. So a number of commentaries suggest that this jug of oil that they found was not oil that was meant for the lighting of the menorah in the first place. That's not what it was for. It was oil that was meant for something else. What was this oil meant for? So the Kohen Gadol had a special offering that he would bring every day. It was called the Minchas Chavitim. And the Minchas Chavitim was a daily mincha and flour offering. It was actually done twice. It was split in two, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. And the oil for the Minchas Chavitin actually it was the Kohen Gadol's own carbon, his own offering, and it had to come from his own stash of oil. He would bring it from his house. It was his own. He had to buy it himself. It wasn't purchased with the money of the treasure, from the treasury of the Beis Hamikdash of the temple. It was the Kohen Gadol's own offering, and he would actually have to sponsor it. So now this was a unique offering of the Kohen Gadol. So the oil, now we have to understand, though, there's a difference between the oil that's required for this carbon mincha, this meal offering, flour offering, versus the oil for the menorah. The oil for the menorah had a very specific requirement, which was that you had to use like the purest oil that first came out of the olives, the kasis lama'or, the very first pure oil that would come out of the olives. That's what had to be used for the menorah. in the case of the Kohen Gadol, of his meal offering, you could use any oil, any olive oil. It didn't have to be the very first drops that came out. But the commentaries suggest that this Kohen Gadol at the time, who may have been Matisyahu, may have been Yochanan, his father. It's not clear who was the Kohen Gadol on at that very who prepared this oil, but the Kohen Gadol prepared the oil, went above and beyond when it came to his special offering. Yes, he could have used any olive oil, but this Kohen Gadol decided that he wanted to use only the best. He wanted to use, in order to beautify the mitzvah, he wanted to use the oil, the very first drops of oil, just like the special oil that's used for the menorah. For my meal offering, for my minchas chavitin, this Kohen Gadol decided that he wanted to use the best oil. And so he would purchase that best oil for his offering and seal it in a special jug with his seal on it, not to mix it up with any other oil. And that's what they found. They found one jug of oil with the Kohen Gadol seal. It had the seal because it was for his special offering, and the seal indicated that he had purchased special oil, the same kind that could be used for the menorah, those first pure drops that come from the olives. And if that's the case, then we can understand why we also are called upon to go above and beyond when it comes to this mitzvah. That you could do it in a basic fashion, you could do one light per night, or you can beautify it within the framework of the mitzvah itself, because the miracle of the oil came about because of this Kohen Gadol who went above and beyond to try to beautify the way he did the mitzvah. So therefore, within the very framework of the mitzvah, the rabbis established that we should have an opportunity also to beautify it. There's a basic way to do it, but you should have an opportunity to beautify it. But he takes it one step further, because the offering that the Kohen Gadol brings, the Minchas Chavitin, is very similar, it's the same almost, to an offering that every Kohen would bring on their first day of work. So the source for this offering is in Vayikra Perek Vav, chapter 6, and it says there in verse 13, it says, Zeh karban Aaron v'anav, this is the offering of Aaron and his sons, which they shall offer to the Lord on the day when one of them is anointed. B'yomi mashachoso, that every Kohen, when they were anointed, drafted into, called up, I guess, from the reserves, or from when they came of age, to be able to serve in the Beis HaMikdash, their first day on the job, they brought a special carbon. It's called a minchas chinuch, a mincha of dedication, that they're dedicating themselves to the avoda, to the temple service. That was every Kohen. And then the verse goes on and it says, verse 15, and the Kohen was anointed instead of him from among his sons, meaning the Kohen Gadol, shall prepare it an eternal statute, meaning he would do it every day. So the regular Kohen would bring this mincha on the day that he was anointed, as a way of like dedicating, it was part of his dedication, his inauguration, and the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, would bring it the same offering every single day. And the Netziv comments that the Kohen Gadol wasn't just bringing the same kind of offering, but he was doing the same thing. Meaning, just like when a Kohen first came on the job, it was an act of inauguration, an act of dedication, so too when the Kohen Gadol would bring every day that carbon, it was an act of rededication, of re-inauguration on a daily basis in his position as Kohen Gadol. And so the oil of the Minchas Chavitin, of this oil that the Kohen Gadol would bring, it's not just any oil. Or the Minchas Chavitin is not just any mincha, it's not just any offering. It's an offering that is about inauguration. It's an offering that's about dedicating the Kohen Gadol to 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 serving. And so the it's fitting, therefore, that the oil that would be used to light the menorah to rededicate the Beis Hamikdash was the very oil that the Kohen Gadol will use to dedicate himself each day. And so the 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 message of the menorah in this case was twofold. It was this Kohen Gadol who was going above and beyond to use the special oil, and it specifically came from oil that was meant as a dedication of himself, as an inauguration of himself. That's the oil that was used according to this approach. That's the oil that was used to rededicate the menorah, and therefore, because it was an act of going above and beyond in dedicating himself, in inaugurating himself. This Kohen Gadol took that very seriously each day to approach it with enthusiasm, with passion, with dedication, to use only the best oil for that kind of offering. So when we go through the act of lighting the menorah, which is commemorating the rededication of the service of Hashem, so we also have the opportunity to do it in not just a regular way, a basic way, but to do it in the most elevated way, to go Mehadrin, Hamehadrin, to go above and beyond. And it's a reminder kind of where we began with the Maharal, that Hashem desires our service. And when we show that we're excited, we're impassioned to do avodah, to serve Hashem, so then Hashem says, I'll show you that I want it. I'll bring a miracle to show you that it's dear to me. And when we do so in a above and beyond fashion, and we just like they were dedicating the Beis Hamikdash, when we light, we're kind of rededicating ourselves to service of Hashem, to do it in a way that shows we want to go above and beyond. We want to beautify the mitzvah. Is a beautiful emulation of the way that it occurred in the times of the Chanukah miracle, and Hashem is extra receptive to that kind of dedication. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.